Welcome in. Jesse Shule here from jesseshule.com. It's the Saturday morning kickoff show, and I've got a pair of special guests today. We got Dan the Man Kaiser, the professor, and we got Rye Cape coming from the insider's room as well. We were supposed to have Dan from Dan's Rants, but poor Dan, he was on the wrong side of the Bedlam game last week, and, he's probably feeling a little bit down. He'd taken down the Iceman a couple times, and he thought it was going to be easy to just keep doing that. But you got to give your head a shake, Dan. You can't just come in and take down the Iceman on my home turf. Anyways, we look forward to seeing Dan again soon. Maybe we'll do a wellness check a little later today. But, the Iceman is rolling along, 7-2-1 the last 3 days. We had another college football winner last night with UNLV. Some suspicious line movement right before kickoff there that had me a little bit worried. But that Wyoming team, you bet on them at home. You don't bet on them on the road. Anyways, we got three big games to talk about today. And we also have the link for this show. Anybody out there tuning in that wants to join in the discussion, the link is pinned on my Twitter page and on my Facebook page. All you got to do is click that link and you'll be in the show as long as you're wearing pants and you're presentable enough, which, with the likes of Dan Kaiser and Rye Cape, it's not stiff competition or anything. So anyways, I will mention the banner at the bottom of your screen for a limited time at jesseshule.com. For the rest of November, you get all my picks, 30 days, all access, all sports, $99. You make a ton of money with that subscription. We're rolling along the last few days, and we're going to keep that momentum going. But let me bring in my man, Rye Cape, to talk about an interesting game that's going off tonight. What's going on, Rye?
Not too much. Yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. We'll see what happens here.
Do you want me to go first this time? You always go first. Why don't you let me go first?
All right, fine.
So we're talking BYU and Iowa State. And, of course, Iowa State's coming off of a loss at home to Kansas in a game that a lot of people were on. They were a popular pick last week, Iowa State. And BYU is a team that everybody's been betting against lately. BYU, they're just not a very good football team. Their defense is questionable. They've been banged up. Their starting quarterback's injured. One thing about BYU, Rye, they play damn good at home. Even better than that, they play damn good at night. And this is going to sound silly. And granted, I think it is a little bit silly, but that doesn't mean I don't want to talk about it because as silly as it is, I think it's a little bit fun. The BYU Cougars, according to the internet, according to Reddit, and a lot of the forums I've been following, 21-0 in night games since 2020. I know Rye's got a different number on that, but it's also pretty good. What's the significance of them winning night games? Well, probably the majority of those games would be home games because BYU is in a different time zone, and it's not a traveling to the East Coast situation for them. I just like this BYU team to have a bit of a bounce back here. They are 5-0 in their last 5 home games. They've been a solid home team for years, and they have a bit of a reputation for being a giant killer. They're never the best team. They're usually, if they're in the top 25, they're at the bottom end of the top 25 or unranked. But over the years, they've taken down quite a few ranked teams at home in Provo. And I know that their starting quarterback, Keaton Slovis, apparently is not going to get the start tonight. He was injured, but the coaches said they don't want to rush him back, and they actually want to see the backup quarterback, what he's got. And he's coming off of a fairly solid game in a losing effort last week, and they have confidence in him, and I'm excited to see what he's got here in a home game against Iowa State. The Cougars are catching 8 points, which seems like an awful lot because Iowa State's not exactly an offensive juggernaut that blows teams out. They're a pretty good defensive team at home mostly, but bit of a travel for them and a different environment. A night game at BYU. I'm not taking them to cover the 8-point spread here. I'll take the points with the home dog. What say you, Ryan?
Yeah, those are all certainly concerns. I guess we'll start with last week, as you were talking about. They did lose to Kansas. They were down 14-3 at half. They only lost 28-21. One of those touchdowns was a pick six, so not horrible. They do only average 24 points per game, but 3 of their last 4, they've scored 27 or more. BYU is on an offensive slump. Their last 2 games, they scored 6 and 7 points. That was with the backup QB. I thought Slovis was going to play, but if you say he's not, which is fine. So, yeah, BYU is inconsistent. They have trouble running the ball as well, which makes them one-dimensional. Against the 32nd ranked defense in the nation, that's going to be a little tough. As you said, BYU's defense is not good either. They're in the bottom half of the conference in passing and rushing defense. They allow 28 points per game. I expect Iowa to score more than that. So last week, Beck had his worst game of the season for Iowa State. It was the first time this season he didn't throw a touchdown pass. They still managed to score 21 in that game. They've been decent running the ball over the last 4 games. They're averaging 143.8 rushing yards a game, and that includes just getting 75 last week against Kansas. The Cougars are vulnerable to the rush. They give up 174 yards per game on the ground. Iowa State defense gives up 21 points per game, but they create turnovers. I expect this defense to give, I guess their backup now, a tough time. Iowa State is 4-0 against the spread when they create at least 2 turnovers. I see that happening tonight. As you said, BYU is undefeated at home this season, but we're talking about teams like Sam Houston, Southern Utah, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. That's not the highest level of competition there. They're not good in conference games. They're only 2-4 ATS. Iowa State, on the other hand, plays well on the road, and they're good in conference. They're 4-2 against the spread in conference. I expect BYU offense to have some trouble with this Iowa State defense. As I said earlier, I think they're going to create turnovers. It's going to put the offense in good field position. I think they're going to get in sync from the start, unlike they did last week at Kansas. They're going to play up-tempo. And as I said, I think this defense is going to get to the quarterback. I think Cyclones get 30 here. I think BYU struggles to hit 20. I'm laying the 8.5 with the road favorite.
All right, Ryan, everything you say makes sense, but it's not a lot of fun. I mean, for me, it's a lot more fun riding with that vampire trend that I catch on. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to suggest that it holds any more significance than just being interesting. But as far as a free pick goes, I'm willing to roll the dice. I did actually sprinkle a little bit on the money line at plus 255 as well. And it's not just because I wanted to talk about the vampire trend because I think it's interesting, but I've long been a backer of BYU in situations like this because, like I said, over the years, BYU has a knack of being a bit of a giant slayer. They upset teams like you. So a lot of the Pac-12 teams they play, they tend to give them a run for their money, and I do have confidence that this BYU team can pull one out of the fire here. The report I saw on the quarterback was that Slovis was recovering from injury, probably healthy enough to start, but they wanted to go with the backup anyways. Perhaps Slovis has been cleared to play. He might even see action. According to the latest report that I was reading this morning was that he might be on the bench and might come in if they don't like what they see out of the backup. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the game, but I was under the understanding that the backup would get the start officially. But,
yeah, that makes sense. When I was looking at it last night, it said that he was the starter, but you're probably correct. Another thing about this game is both of these teams, whoever wins this game is going to be a bowl eligible. Both these teams have a hard schedule after here, these last 2 games. So probably the loser's not going to get into a bowl. So it's a pretty big game here for both teams.
That is an excellent point. I was looking at that as well. Well, Rye, why don't you tell everybody what you've been doing lately, what you got going on? I understand you're on a 6-game winning streak with college football.
Yeah, after a brutal start, I have won my last 6, so I'm doing very well in college football now. I actually have a play up on the insidersroom.com if you want to check that out. That's under Tom Macrina. 5-1 in NBA this season. I swept the NFL Sunday card on this past weekend and the weekend before, so I'm getting hot in that as well. NHL, I'm on and off. College basketball, I'm winning, but nothing I want to brag about here. Yeah, and check me out at Rycape on all social media, and check me out on the Insiders Room. You're going to find me under Tom Macrina.
You will actually find him in the link in the description box below this video. There's a link to Tom's Capper's page at the Insiders Room. Well, thanks for stopping in, Rye. We'll bring you back in a second, but we got to talk to my man, Dan Kaiser, for a second. All right, Dan, you're back for another Saturday kickoff show. How'd you do on the show last week? Do you remember?
Didn't I win?
I think you were on the NFL show and you had a winner on the NFL show. I think this is your official debut on the Saturday morning kickoff show. Yeah, we're getting you out of bed early.
I don't remember being up early with you last Saturday, but time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a big game in the Pac-12. I really like this game. You want me to go first this time, Dan, or do you want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
All right. So Utah against Washington. Washington's an 8.5-point favorite. That line has been bet down, and that's likely a product of the weather in Seattle today. Howling winds, pretty heavy rain expected during the game today. And of course, that's not going to favor the Washington Huskies, a team that relies heavily on the passing game. And that really sets up Utah to play a sort of a ground control game, run the ball, control the clock, keep the ball out of Michael Penix Jr.'s hands, and do what they do best, play defense and run the ball. Now, Washington, clearly the better team, undefeated on the year, but they've had a few hiccups. They're coming off a pretty solid win. They dropped 100 on USC last week on the road, and they come back home. But we've seen this before. They beat the Oregon Ducks at home on a college game day, big game, and then the following week they barely beat Arizona State. So this is a team that could suffer a letdown. And I think we talked about this the other day, Dan. Over the years, if you watch enough college football, you know that teams that are 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, it's pretty hard to get to 12-0 in college football. A few teams do it every year, but more often than not, these teams, they have along the road somewhere, there's a spot that the wheel falls off the wagon, and they don't get, even though they probably should run the table. They're the favorite in every game, but it just doesn't seem to work out that way. And I think the Washington Huskies have an uphill battle today in a bad weather game against a team that's bigger, more physical, better defensively, and fully capable of running the ball and hanging around in this game. So that's where I stand on this one. Dan, I like, not only do I like Utah, but I also like the under. I do have a premium pick on the under 52.5 in this game. Of course, that total's come down below 50. But and perhaps you don't want to be late to the total on the party, on the total. But the difference between 8.5, 9.5, I'd still recommend Utah at plus 8.5. I'm not worried about losing that point there. I think this is going to be a game that's decided late, and it's going to be quite close. So why don't you tell us what you think about this game, Dan?
Yeah, well, Jesse, we did talk about this game yesterday, and at one point you had me convinced that I should buy, or you didn't convince me of it, but you convinced me on your thinking that maybe I'll buy the 0.5 point and take it at 10. I've had a night to sleep on it, think about it, look at it a little bit more. And now that the line's at 8.5, I'm definitely going to be a Washington Huskies backer here. Yeah, Utah, they rely on their defense because they have to, because their offense stinks. They've won their 2 games they've lost this year. They've scored 7 and 6 points. And in the games they've won against halfway decent competition, they've scored 24, 20, and 14 against UCLA. I understand the weather thing, but then I have to think about who is Washington's quarterback. It's Michael Penix Jr. Where did he play his first 3 seasons? Indiana. It rains. It snows. It's crap weather in Indiana, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. I know Washington's running game is not great, but you have Michael Penix. I think you're going to see him run the ball a lot more in this game, and that makes them dangerous. I just 8.5. That's just not enough points for me to back Utah's quarterback. I have no faith in Utah's offense to put up more than 14 points in this one, and I think Washington will at least get 24. So I kind of like you, even at this lower number, I do like the under in this one. And I know, can you ever be late to the party? Look at Iowa. That game just keeps getting lower and lower and lower, and it keeps going under and under and under every week.
Is it 27 yet?
27.5.
Man,
yeah.
Is that the lowest ever? I can't remember seeing a total under 29.
Well, last 2 weeks ago or last week, I think last week when it opened at 28.5, that was the lowest, and it kept getting bet down. I was listening to the guy from the Circa, the guy that runs the sports book for the Circa, and he said they opened it at this game at like 28, and he said right away they had to move it down because the money just keeps pouring in on the under. He says he doesn't. He says he was joking. He said, "I think if he said it at 17, people would still bet the under." It's nuts. But he says he's never seen anything like it. But hey, but back to this game, I just don't think Utah can score enough to get it under the number. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a huge blowout by Washington, but I think they'll win this game by 10-14.
Yeah, well, if the weather doesn't come to fruition, if it's raining a little bit before game time and then it starts to clear up right before kickoff, that might not bode well for Utah. But in a game with wind and rain, you won't catch me laying 8.5. And I stand firm in what I said about teams that are undefeated. It gets more and more difficult. Eventually, the wheels come off somewhere, and this Washington team's shown me all the signs of a team that the wheels are going to come off before they run the table this season. So it'll be an interesting game to watch. I'm looking forward to this one, Dan. But let's bring Ryan and let's talk about your favorite team. Anybody got the latest news on Jim Harbaugh?
Nothing.
You're muted, Ryan.
Yes, I am.
The word on the street is that Harbaugh is going to get a court injunction. He's going to be on the sidelines. Almost everybody seems to believe that's what's going to happen. Jim Harbaugh will not coach against Michigan State, though. Just breaking at ESPN.
Well, good, because they're not playing Michigan State.
Sorry, Penn State. Oh, man. Yeah, no, it sounds like he was denied in court. Sounds like Harbaugh lost his restraining order bid.
I did see that.
I guess having a Michigan judge on the payroll doesn't really do you much good.
That is surprising. Everybody seemed quite booth, confident. Right?
He'll still be in the booth.
No, he won't.
No?
No. Not allowed in the building.
Well, damn.
Actually, he didn't lose his application for a restraining order. They said it won't be ruled on today. So, man, that was quite a dirty thing they did, though. They waited till they got on the plane before they announced the suspension, so as though not to give him time to appeal it. Yeah, I got to say, I'm not really a fan of this kind of behavior from the conference to harm one of its biggest draws. And like I said, I've said it before, I'd like to see this decided on the football field. I'm not opposed to punishing Harbaugh and punishing Michigan, but the timing, to me, I don't see how that's good for college football, good for fans.
So when is the right timing?
I mean, you could have done it on Wednesday.
Well, I'll give you.
Well, yeah. Well, no, and not only that. I mean,
is it really a suspension though? Because he still gets to coach all week.
It's true.
I mean, this is just the Big Ten, not the NCAA, correct?
Correct.
That's right.
So,
but
yeah,
I mean,
Big Ten's trying to
as I understand it, this information was all available. I mean, TCU knew about this in the playoffs last year, right? So everybody's known about this since the summer.
They've known about the signals. They didn't know how they. I don't think they know how they were getting them.
Yeah, all the Connor Stallion stuff was news when we found out.
And do you think they came out with it as soon as they found out? Because I mean, it seems to me that they've been sitting on it, and they wait till Michigan's 8-0, and then they're like, okay, let's hit them with this.
Yeah, I think they've been investigating this for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. I'm not opposed to punishing Harbaugh at Michigan, but I do believe in due process. And I mean, if it's still an investigation, should we be levying punishment? I mean, has it gone to a governing body? Has an oversight committee reviewed the information and come to a conclusion? It seems like a rather hasty wait till they're on the plane, announce that he's suspended because and under pressure from Ryan Day and a handful of other coaches in the Big Ten. And I know Dan's shaking his head, but I mean, it doesn't seem like the right way to go about doing things to me.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're trying to stick it to Michigan.
Yeah, almost like a dick swinging contest between the power players in college football. And when the power players start swinging their dicks around, the average guys, which are the fans, I don't think are served in a situation like that. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way it's being handled, but I guess I'm cheering for Penn State today, anyways. That'll put a smile on your face, Dan.
Yeah, I think most people are.
Well, the latest thing I hear, sort of things. I guess supposedly the regents last week met and talked about leaving the conference. Go, leave, fuck off. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Leave the $100 million check on the table as you walk. When you swing the door shut behind you. Where are you gonna go? They don't want to go to the SEC.
No.
What to go to the ACC and take a 50% pay cut? They're not going anywhere. So
how about Blake Corum? Have you guys seen the latest on the Blake Corum involved in an LLC with Connor Stallions?
Yeah. Selling vacuum cleaners.
It just Connor was selling vacuum cleaner, secondhand vacuum cleaner business out of his house. Well, no, there's an LLC out of Colorado, I think, or Wyoming, that supposedly it's got Blake Corum's name on it. And Corum said, I don't know how my name.
Yeah, I saw that interview. It was after a game, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know nothing about that. I got nothing to do with vacuum cleaners. My lawyer's on that." It was quite convincing. Like, yeah, Connor Stallions is using his name or something is what he made it sound like, right?
Yeah.
Fact remains, his name is on the paperwork. So, but somebody dug up an old tweet from him, and the tweet says, "I'm a walking LLC, man. I'm my own business," and it's got like a hashtag, and it's got an LLC with the code that that shows you what the company is, and he's tweeting this stuff out. So, I mean,
I haven't seen that.
That sounds quite incriminating.
Yeah, well,
keep your mouth shut and play football.
Yeah, well, the culture in college football has changed to the point where the players think they run the show now, and they think they can get away with doing whatever they want, including recording their head coach in a meeting and releasing it to the media, which is another sore spot that I don't think reflects very well on the game.
And he's suing the team?
suing the team, claiming that they didn't respect his mental, or they didn't take his mental health seriously. However, the fact that he goes into a meeting with a phone in his pocket recording his head coach, to me, indicates that he's motivated to manufacture a situation rather than an actual situation. Rather than that actual situation that he's claiming is happening, he's trying to manufacture it.
Yeah.
I think
I listened to the recording, and it was I agree 100% with everything Lane Kiffin said. He was right on point.
Well, you know, Ryan, me and you going to get fired if we don't show up for work, right?
Well, I guess,
you know.
And I guess as I read the response from Ole Miss to the lawsuit, they said, "Well, look at he's claiming that it was racial because a white person has never been suspended for the same thing." And he's like, "But you can't point out one white person that has come up with this, And same thing about the sexual things. He goes, women haven't been retaliated for mental health issues, and they're like, well, you haven't even produced one woman that's claimed mental health issues. So I think he's just throwing things at the wall. Yeah, obviously, he wasn't starting on defense where he wanted to. He wasn't good enough to play offense, and there's no way he's going to make the NFL. So somehow he's got to make his millions.
Well, I hope he doesn't get a dime. I got to say, I hope he doesn't get a dime. But, I guess nobody out there on Twitter wanted to join the show today. I did put the link out there, but nobody's got the cojones. And Dan's rants, just still licking his wounds from being on the wrong side of Bedlam last week. But, oh, well, boys, I think it's almost beer o'clock. Okay. It's time to kick back and watch that Michigan-Penn State game. And, looking forward to seeing the Nittany Lions open up a can of whoop-ass. I'm not actually betting on the. I like the under from a betting standpoint. I like the under, but I'll be cheering for the Nittany Lions. I'm not a big Michigan fan, as much as it might have sounded like I was defending them. I try to be objective when voicing my opinion about
somebody has to be.
These exactly, because we know we can't count on you to do that, right, Dan?
Nope.
All right, boys. Well, I want to thank you once again for joining me, and we hope to see you again, maybe Thursday or maybe next Saturday or maybe both. But until then, good luck, unless you're against us.
Let's catch some